The night my father gave my brother a brand new car and then pulled me aside to demand $900 in rent by Sunday, I finally understood something I'd been too afraid to admit for 23 years. I wasn't their daughter. I was their employee, their safety net, their responsible one, which, as it turns out, is just family code for the one we can take for granted. But here's the thing about taking someone for granted. You get comfortable, you get sloppy, and you stop noticing that the person you've been stepping on has been quietly building the strength to walk away. They had no idea I was about to disappear from their lives. No idea that the dependable daughter they'd used as the foundation for their household was about to pull out from under them and let the whole thing collapse. And honestly, they deserved every second of what came next. If you've ever been the one in your family who does everything right, pays the bills on time, shows up when you're needed, never causes drama, and somehow still gets treated like you're worth less than the person who does none of those things, hit that like button right now. And if you want to hear how I finally stopped being the family doormat and made them realize exactly what they'd lost, subscribe. Because this story, it's going to take a while. And trust me, the ending is worth it. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand something. What happened at that graduation party wasn't a sudden snap. It was the final crack in a foundation that had been crumbling my entire life. I'm the oldest. My brother Jake is 4 years younger. And from the moment he was born, the rules of our family were clear, even if no one ever said them out loud. I was expected to be perfect. Jake was expected to be himself. When I brought home straight A's in elementary school, my parents would nod and say, "Good, that's what we expected." When Jake brought home C's and the occasional D, they'd sit with him for hours, hire tutors, and celebrate like he'd cured cancer when he scraped his way to a B-. When I got into my first choice college with a partial scholarship, my dad said, "Well, you'll need to cover the rest with loans and a job. It'll teach you responsibility." When Jake got into a state school 4 years later with no scholarship and worse grades, they paid his full tuition without blinking. I'm not saying Jake was a bad kid. He wasn't. He was just regular. Average effort, average results, average drama. But somewhere along the way, my parents decided that average was something to nurture and reward, while exceptional was something to exploit and ignore. I didn't realize how toxic it was at the time. You don't when you're raised in it. It's like growing up in a house with a gas leak. You get so used to the smell that you don't notice you're slowly being poisoned. After I graduated from college, I made what I thought was a smart financial decision. I moved back home to save money while I looked for a job in my field. My parents seemed thrilled. My mom actually teared up when I told her, saying, "It'll be so good to have you home, sweetie. We've missed you." What I didn't realize was that "we've missed you" meant we've missed having someone to do everything. Within a month of moving back, I had somehow become the household manager. I was the one who remembered to pay the bills. I was the one who scheduled the HVAC maintenance and called the plumber when the toilet started making that weird gurgling sound. I was the one who drove my mom to her doctor's appointments because my dad had work and Jake had class, even though I also had work and was trying to study for certification exams in my spare time. I picked groceries on my way home. I cooked dinner at least 3 nights a week because my mom was too tired and my dad didn't know how. I organized the garage, cleaned out the basement, and somehow became the designated coordinator for every family event, from Easter brunch to my grandmother's birthday. And you know what I got for all of that? Not thank yous, not appreciation, not even acknowledgement. What I got was the expectation that I would keep doing it forever, because that's just what Sarah does. My mom once told her friend, within earshot of me, "Oh, we're so lucky to have Sarah home. She's just so responsible. We can trust her with anything." And the sick thing? At the time, I felt proud. I thought trust was a compliment. I didn't realize that in my family, trust meant we know we can use you and you won't complain. Meanwhile, Jake was living his best life. He had a part-time job at a sporting goods store that he worked maybe 15 hours a week. He spent most of his time gaming with friends, going to parties, and, I'm not making this up, learning to skateboard at 20 years old. Like he was going through a second adolescence while I was handling his family's property taxes. When I brought this up to my mom once, gently because I was still too conditioned to rock the boat, she just patted my hand and said, "Oh, sweetie, Jake just needs more time to find himself. He's not like you. He wasn't born responsible." Wasn't born responsible. As if responsibility was some genetic gift I'd been blessed with, rather than a survival mechanism I'd developed because no one was ever going to catch me if I fell. I swallowed it. I swallowed all of it, because that's what the responsible one does. You don't make scenes, you don't cause problems, you keep your head down and tell yourself that eventually, someday, people will see what you're worth. Spoiler alert, they don't. Not unless you force them to. The months slid by. I got a decent job in my field, nothing spectacular, but a solid starting salary with room for growth. I started saving money, thinking about eventually getting my own place. But every time I brought up moving out, my parents got weird about it. "Why would you waste money on rent when you can live here for free?" my dad would say. Except it wasn't free. Not really. I was paying in labor, in emotional energy, in the constant low-grade stress of managing a household that wasn't mine. But I didn't have the words for that yet. I just felt tired. Tired and somehow guilty for feeling tired. I'd lie awake at night sometimes, staring at my childhood ceiling with its glow-in-the-dark stars that I'd stuck up there when I was 11, and I'd think, is this it? Is this my life now? Am I just going to live here forever, slowly turning into the spinster daughter who sacrifices everything for her family and gets nothing in return? But then I'd tell myself I was being dramatic, that I was being ungrateful, that my parents loved me, they just showed it differently, that I was lucky to have a stable home and a family that wanted me around. The gas leak was getting stronger, but I still couldn't smell it. Jake's graduation from college was approaching, and even though he'd taken 5 years to get a 4-year degree, even though he'd changed majors 3 times and nearly flunked out twice, my parents treated it like he was receiving the Nobel Prize. My mom spent weeks planning the party. She rented out the backyard, hired a caterer, ordered a custom cake with his name on it. The guest list was huge. Extended family, family friends, neighbors, even some of my parents' coworkers. I helped, of course, because that's what I do. I addressed invitations, I coordinated with vendors, I helped my mom pick out decorations and set up tables. I did everything except actually be acknowledged as someone who had also, graduated from college 4 years earlier, with honors. With a party that consisted of my parents taking me to Olive Garden and my dad complaining about the breadstick prices. But I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be petty. I didn't want to make Jake's day about me. I was the bigger person, the mature one, the responsible one. God, I was so stupid. The day of the party was beautiful. Sunny, warm, the kind of late spring day that makes everything feel full of possibility. The backyard looked amazing. I'd spent 6 hours the day before hanging string lights and arranging flowers. Jake looked happy, genuinely happy, surrounded by his friends and basking in the attention. And honestly, part of me was happy for him. Despite everything, he was still my little brother. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike, helping him with his multiplication tables, sneaking him cookies when he was supposed to be in timeout. Somewhere underneath the resentment, I still loved him. I just wished that love was a two-way street. The party was in full swing when my dad clinked his glass and called for everyone's attention. I was near the back of the crowd, half listening while I mentally calculated how many serving trays I'd need to bring out for the cake cutting. "I want to say a few words about my son," my dad began, his voice thick with emotion. Jake, you've grown into such an incredible young man. You've worked so hard to get here, and your mother and I are so proud of everything you've accomplished." I managed not to roll my eyes, barely. "We know the road hasn't always been easy," my dad continued, "but you've shown real determination, real character, and we wanted to do something special to celebrate this milestone." My dad reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. The crowd went quiet. "Jake, come here, son." Jake looked confused as he walked up to stand next to our dad. My dad put an arm around his shoulders and held up the keys so everyone could see. "These are the keys to your new car. It's parked out front, brand new. You've earned it." The crowd erupted. People were cheering, clapping. Jake was doing that shocked face thing that people do in surprise videos. My mom was crying. My aunt was taking pictures. And I was standing in the back, frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I could hear it in my ears. A new car, a brand new car, for graduating with a 2.4 GPA after nearly flunking out twice. I thought about my own graduation 4 years ago, the Olive Garden dinner where my dad had complained about the prices, the way my mom had told me she was proud, but in that distracted tone that meant she was already thinking about something else. The fact that I'd had to take out loans to buy my own used Honda Civic, which was currently sitting in the driveway with 120,000 miles on it and a mysterious rattling sound that I couldn't afford to get fixed. My hands were shaking. I could feel the blood draining from my face. But I held it together, because that's what I do. I smiled, I clapped, I hugged Jake and told him congratulations. I took pictures and helped cut the cake and made sure the caterers had enough ice. I performed being okay because I'd been doing it my whole life. The party wound down around 8 o'clock. Guests filtered out, leaving behind half-eaten plates and empty glasses. I started cleaning up automatically, muscle memory taking over, while my brain ran in frantic circles. "It's fine. It's not about the car. He's the baby of the family. They probably saved up for years. It doesn't mean anything." But it did mean something. It meant everything. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. I was loading the dishwasher when my dad came into the kitchen. He had that satisfied look he gets after a successful event, the look of a man who believes he's done something impressive. "Sarah, got a minute?" I straightened up, wiping my hands on a dish towel. "Sure, what's up?" He leaned against the counter, casual, like what he was about to say was the most normal thing in the world. "Listen, we've been talking, your mom and I. You've been home for a while now, and you've got a good job. You're stable. So we think it's time you started contributing to the household." I blinked. "Contributing? Dad, I help with everything around here. I pay for groceries half the time. He waved his hand, dismissing me. "That's all appreciated, honey, but I'm talking about rent, real contribution, adult stuff." My stomach dropped. "Rent? $900 a month. That's very reasonable for this area. You'd pay twice that for your own apartment." $900. He'd just given my brother a brand new car, probably worth $20,000 or $30,000, and now he was standing in front of me asking me to pay $900 a month to continue being his unpaid household manager. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience, like I was floating above myself, watching this conversation happen to someone else. $900 a month? I repeated slowly. Starting when? Sunday. Sunday, as in 5 days from now? That's right. I stared at him. He stared back, completely unaware that he'd just detonated a bomb in the center of my chest. "Dad, you just gave Jake a car." His expression didn't change. That's different. Jake needed encouragement. Encouragement? He needed... I stopped, took a breath, tried to keep my voice level. "I've been helping out around here constantly, doing everything, and you never charged me rent before. You weren't making as much before. Things change. You're an adult now. Adults pay their way. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to throw the dish towel in his face and list every single thing I'd done for this family that he'd never noticed, never acknowledged, never appreciated. I wanted to ask him why Jake, who had done nothing but coast through life on their support, got rewarded with a car, while I got punished for being capable. But I didn't. The words stuck in my throat, held back by 23 years of training. Don't cause problems, don't make scenes, don't be ungrateful. Fine, I heard myself say. I'll have it for you by Sunday. My dad smiled, satisfied. That's my girl. I knew you'd understand. He patted me on the shoulder, actually patted me like I was a good dog who'd learned a new trick, and walked out of the kitchen. I stood there for a long time, dish towels still in my hands, staring at the half-loaded dishwasher. And something inside me shifted. It wasn't a snap, not exactly, more like a click, the sound of a lock finally sliding into place, a door that had been stuck for years suddenly swinging open. I saw it all clearly now, laid out in perfect, brutal clarity. The years of invisible labor, the unacknowledged sacrifices, the way I'd been twisted into knots trying to earn love that was apparently just being handed out for free to anyone but me. My parents didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as an asset, a resource to be used, like the dishwasher I was standing in front of. And Jake, though? Jake was the heir, the one who mattered, the one who was worth it. The phrase echoed in my head. Jake needed encouragement. As if I didn't. As if I never needed anything. As if being capable meant I wasn't allowed to be valued. The dish towel dropped from my hands. I walked upstairs to my childhood bedroom, past the glow-in-the-dark stars that suddenly felt like a constellation of broken promises, and I sat down on my bed, and I started to think. Not about how to fix this, not about how to explain myself or smooth things over or be the bigger person. I started to think about how to leave. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while my brain ran through calculations like some kind of manic accountant. Savings account, decent but not amazing. Monthly expenses, manageable if I was careful. Friends who might let me crash for a few days? A short list, but not empty. The thought of leaving, really leaving, not just moving into my own apartment, but cutting myself loose from this whole twisted dynamic, was terrifying. It went against everything I'd been taught. Family first. Blood is thicker than water. You don't abandon the people who raised you. But what if the people who raised you never really saw you to begin with? I kept replaying my dad's words. That's different. Jake needed encouragement. The casual dismissal in his voice, the complete absence of awareness that he just revealed something fundamental about how he viewed his children. Jake needed encouragement. And what did I need? Nothing, apparently. I was the self-sufficient one, the low-maintenance daughter, the one who could be ignored because she'd never made them work for it. Somewhere around 3 a.m, I got out of bed and started a list. Not on my phone, I was paranoid even then, but on the back of an old receipt I found in my desk drawer. Things I did around this house. I wanted to see it all written out, just to confirm that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't being ungrateful or entitled. The list filled the entire receipt and spilled onto a second one. Paid utilities, split with parents, but I managed the payments, scheduled all home maintenance, drove mom to doctor appointments, minimum twice a month, grocery shopping, at least half the time, paid with my own money, cooked dinner 3 to 4 nights per week, cleaned common areas, living room, kitchen, bathrooms, did everyone's laundry when I did mine because it's easier to do one big load, managed family calendar and reminded everyone of appointments and events, organized garage and basement, coordinated all holidays and family gatherings, handled insurance paperwork for parents, tech support for all devices in the house, plant care and yard work. The list went on. When I finally ran out of receipts, I had documented over 30 different tasks that I'd been doing regularly without acknowledgement for 2 years. And my reward for all of this was a $900 rent bill delivered 5 minutes after my brother received a car. The injustice of it burned in my chest like acid. But here's the thing about the responsible one in a family. We're not just good at doing tasks. We're good at planning, at thinking ahead, at considering consequences. If I was going to leave, I was going to do it right. The next few days were a masterclass in acting normal while secretly dismantling your entire life. I went to work like nothing was wrong. I smiled at my parents over breakfast. I even helped Jake figure out how to set up the Bluetooth in his new car, the one I was probably partially subsidizing with my future rent payments, without letting any bitterness show. But underneath, I was moving. I quietly consolidated my savings into an account my parents didn't know about. I gathered all my important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport, college diploma, and put them in my work bag. I started mentally cataloging which of my possessions were truly mine and which were family items I'd been borrowing indefinitely. I texted my friend Megan, carefully, casually. Hey, random question. If someone needed to crash at your place for like a week or two, would that be weird? Her response came back in seconds. Depends. Are we talking escaping a crime scene or escaping a bad relationship? I typed back, escaping family. Girl, you can stay as long as you need. I have a couch with your name on it. Literally, I'll put a label on it. I almost cried. Megan had always been like that. Direct, practical, no nonsense. We'd been friends since high school, and she'd witnessed the weird dynamics in my family firsthand. She'd never said anything directly, but I knew she saw it. The way my parents talked about Jake versus the way they talked about me. The way I was always doing, always managing, always invisible. Thank you, I wrote. I'll explain when I see you. Probably Saturday. Her reply was a single thumbs up emoji. One thing secured. Thursday night was the hardest. My mom asked me to help her with menu planning for some neighborhood event she was involved in. Normally, I would have said yes without thinking, just another task to add to the infinite list. But this time, knowing what I knew, knowing that I was leaving in 2 days, every interaction felt loaded with hidden meaning. Sarah, you're so good at this stuff, my mom said, spreading recipe printouts across the kitchen table. I don't know what I'd do without you. I looked at her, really looked, and tried to figure out if she meant it, if she had any awareness of the imbalance, any understanding of how much she'd been taking for granted. Thanks, Mom, I said carefully, but you could learn to do this stuff yourself. It's not that hard. She laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd told a joke. Oh, sweetie, that's not my thing. I'm hopeless with organization. You're not hopeless, I thought. You've just never had to try. But I didn't say that. I just smiled and helped her with the menu because I was still performing, still playing the role I'd been assigned at birth. 2 more days. That's what I told myself. 2 more days. Friday, I came home from work to find Jake sprawled on the couch playing video games. The kitchen was a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink, the counter covered in crumbs, the garbage overflowing because no one had thought to take it out. Normally, I would have sighed and started cleaning. That's what I always did. That's what was expected. But this time, I walked past it. I went straight to my room and started packing. I didn't take everything. I couldn't. That would have been too obvious, and I wanted to be gone before anyone realized what was happening. I took clothes for about a week, toiletries, my laptop, and the documents I'd already secured. Everything else could come later, or not at all. I was amazed at how little I actually needed. My whole life in a duffel bag and a backpack. It felt like a metaphor. I hid the bags in my closet behind a stack of old boxes and went back downstairs to play the role of dutiful daughter for one more night. At dinner, my dad reminded me about the rent. "You've got that $900 for me by Sunday, right?" "Yes, Dad, I'll have it." He nodded, satisfied. "Good, I knew you wouldn't let us down." I wanted to throw my fork at his head. Instead, I finished my chicken and asked to be excused. Saturday morning, moving day, D-Day, whatever you want to call it. I woke up at 6, heart already pounding. The house was quiet. My parents liked to sleep in on weekends, and Jake would be unconscious until noon at least. I had a window. I moved quickly, efficiently. Duffel bag, backpack, purse. I did one last sweep of my room to make sure I had everything essential. Chargers, medications, the small jewelry box that had belonged to my grandmother, the only family heirloom I cared about. Then I sat down at my desk and wrote a note. I'd spent 2 nights drafting it in my head, discarding versions that were too angry, too apologetic, too explanatory. In the end, I kept it simple. Mom and Dad, I'm moving out. I've decided to take responsibility for my own life on my own terms. Please don't call me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Sarah. That was it. 3 sentences. After 23 years, that was all I could give them. I left the note on my bed, where they'd find it eventually. Then I picked up my bags, walked downstairs, and slipped out the front door. It was 7:30 in the morning. The neighborhood was quiet, the air cool and crisp. My car, my old, paid-off, 120,000-mile Honda Civic, was waiting in the driveway, faithful as always. I loaded my bags in the trunk, got behind the wheel, and sat there for a long moment, just breathing. This is it. You're actually doing this. My hands were shaking. My eyes were burning with tears I refused to let fall. I turned the key in the ignition, and the engine rattled to life. I drove away without looking back. Megan met me at the door of her apartment with a cup of coffee and a hug so tight I finally let myself cry. "Okay," she said, guiding me inside. "Tell me everything." And I did. Every single thing, from the graduation party to the car to the rent demand to the 2 years of invisible labor. I talked for almost an hour while Megan listened, her expression shifting from surprise to anger to something that looked a lot like vindication. When I finally stopped, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I've been waiting for you to do this for years." I blinked. "What?" "Sarah, I love you, but you've been in denial about your family for as long as I've known you. Every time you told me some story about your parents, I wanted to shake you and say, 'Do you hear yourself?' But you weren't ready. You had to see it for yourself." I thought about all the times I'd brushed off her concerns, all the times I've made excuses for my parents, or changed the subject when she got too close to the truth. "I feel so stupid," I said. "You're not stupid. You were conditioned. There's a difference." She handed me a blanket and pointed at the couch. "Now, you're going to sit here, drink that coffee, and not answer your phone when it starts blowing up, because it's going to blow up." She wasn't wrong. The calls started around noon. First my mom, then my dad, then my mom again, then a number I didn't recognize, probably one of their friends or a neighbor they'd recruited to track me down. I watched the notifications pile up, every vibration of my phone like a tiny stab in my chest. Part of me wanted to answer, to explain, to make them understand. That old conditioning ran deep. But for the first time in my life, I chose not to justify myself. I turned my phone to silent and shoved it in a drawer. By evening, I had 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. I didn't read any of them. I knew what they would say. "Where are you? What's going on? Why are you doing this? Don't you love us? But the one question they would never ask, the one that would have mattered, was what did we do to make you feel like you had to leave? They wouldn't ask because they didn't think they'd done anything wrong. In their minds, they were wonderful parents, supportive, generous. They'd raised 2 children and kept a roof over everyone's heads and threw lovely parties for graduations. The fact that only one of those children actually got thrown a party was just a detail, a minor inconsistency, nothing to feel guilty about. I fell asleep on Megan's couch that night feeling lighter than in years, and also terrified because I had no idea what came next. Sunday, the day my rent was supposed to be due, I woke up to a voicemail from my dad. I told myself I wouldn't listen to it, but I did. "Sarah, this is ridiculous. I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to come home right now. We're worried sick. Your mother is crying. Whatever this is, we can talk about it like adults. Call me back." No apology, no reflection, just demands wrapped in the guise of concern. I deleted the voicemail and made myself breakfast.
The next week was surreal. I went to work like normal, fielding occasional texts from coworkers who'd heard through some family grapevine that something was going on. I kept my answers vague, professional. "Personal situation, I'm handling it, thanks for your concern." At night, I came back to Megan's apartment and tried to process the fact that I'd actually done it. I'd actually left. The constant low-level anxiety that had been my background noise for years was starting to quiet, replaced by something I barely recognized. Peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. The absence of being on call for people who didn't value me. My parents kept trying to reach me. Their texts had evolved from concerned to confused to angry. "Mom, please just tell us where you are. We won't be mad." "Dad, this is incredibly disrespectful. We gave you everything and this is how you repay us?" "Mom, I don't understand what we did wrong. Please just talk to us." I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I was trying to punish them, though I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in their confusion, but because I genuinely didn't have anything to say. What was I supposed to tell them? That I left because they valued my brother more than me? They'd deny it, they'd twist it, they'd make me the villain. So I stayed silent, and I let them stew. And then, about 10 days after I left, I got a call I wasn't expecting. It was Jake. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maybe curiosity, maybe some lingering sibling affection that hadn't quite died. "Hello? Sarah? Oh, thank God. Where are you? What's going on?" He sounded panicked, actually panicked. "I'm fine, Jake. I'm staying with a friend." "But why did you leave? Mom and Dad are freaking out. Mom's been crying every day. Dad keeps walking around the house yelling at things. It's insane." I could hear the stress in his voice, and for a moment I almost felt bad. Almost. "I left because I needed to, Jake. That's all I'm going to say right now. But everything's falling apart. The electric bill didn't get paid, and there was some notice on the door, and Mom doesn't know how to handle it, and the dishwasher broke, and no one knows who to call, and..." He kept going. A list of crises, each one something I would have handled automatically if I'd been there. Routine tasks that had become invisible until the person doing them vanished. "Jake," I interrupted, "I'm not coming back to fix things." "But no, this is your chance to learn how to do this stuff. Figure it out. Call the electric company. Google dishwasher repair near me. It's not hard. It just requires someone to actually do it." Silence on his end. "Look," I said, softening slightly, "I'm not mad at you specifically, but I need you to understand something. For 2 years, I've been doing everything around that house. Everything. And no one noticed. No one thanked me. And the one time I was going to be asked for something in return, it was rent. Not rent as a fair exchange, but rent as a punishment for being capable." "A punishment? Sarah, that doesn't even..." "Dad gave you a car, Jake, a brand new car, at your graduation party, in front of everyone. And then, that same night, he pulled me aside and told me I had to start paying $900 a month or else." Jake was quiet. I didn't know about the rent thing," he finally said. "No, you wouldn't, because no one thought to tell the golden child that his sister was being squeezed for money on the same day he got a $30,000 gift." He heard him inhale sharply. I might have been harsh, but I was so tired of softening the truth. "I'll help you figure out the logistics. Once. I'll explain where the important documents are and give you some numbers to call. But after that, you're on your own. You need to learn this stuff, and honestly, it'll be good for you." He agreed, reluctantly. I spent 20 minutes walking him through basic household management, where the insurance papers were filed, how to access the utility accounts, the name of the guy who serviced the HVAC, things I'd been doing for years without anyone ever asking how I knew them. By the end of the call, Jake sounded overwhelmed. "How did you do all this?" "I just did it, Jake, because someone had to, and no one else was going to." We hung up. I stood in Megan's kitchen, holding my phone, feeling a complicated mix of guilt and satisfaction. Maybe he would learn something from this. Maybe he'd finally understand what invisible labor actually looked like. Or maybe he'd just find a way to dump it on someone else, a girlfriend, a roommate, eventually a wife. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore.
2 weeks after I left, my dad showed up at Megan's apartment. I still don't know how he found the address. Maybe he'd tracked my phone or gone through my old things or just called everyone I knew until someone slipped up. It didn't matter. The point was, he was there. Megan came to tell me, her face tight with controlled fury. "Sarah, your dad is in my lobby. He's asking to come up." My heart slammed into my throat. "What?" "I told the doorman not to let him up without your permission. He's causing a scene, talking loud, waving his arms, whole thing. Do you want me to have him removed?" Part of me wanted to say yes. Part of me wanted to hide in the bedroom and pretend this wasn't happening. But another part of me, a part that had been growing stronger every day since I left, knew that this confrontation had to happen. Not for his sake, for mine. "Let him up," I said. Megan raised her eyebrows. "You sure?" "Yeah, but stay nearby, just in case." She nodded. "I'll be in the kitchen. One yell and I'm out here with the pepper spray." 2 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it, and there he was, my father, the man who'd raised me, who'd fed me and clothed me and taught me to ride a bike, the man who'd looked me in the eye and told me that my brother was worth it in a way that I apparently wasn't. He looked older than I remembered, tired. His hair was more gray than brown now, and there were new lines around his eyes. Good, I thought. Then I immediately felt guilty for thinking it. "Sarah," his voice was stiff. "Can I come in?" "Sure." He walked past me into Megan's small living room, looking around like he was cataloging every detail for later criticism. The second-hand couch, the IKEA furniture, the modest apartment that was nothing like the house I'd grown up in. "This is where you're living now?" he asked. "For now, I'm looking for my own place." "With what money? You were supposed to pay us rent." And there it was, less than 30 seconds in, and he was already making it about the money. "Dad, that's not why I left." He turned to face me, arms crossed. "Then why? Because you were asked to contribute like an adult?" "No, because I was asked to contribute right after Jake was given a car. Because I've been contributing for 2 years in ways you never acknowledged. Because..." Here we go. He threw up his hands. The jealousy speech. I knew that's what this was about. Something cold unfurled in my chest. Jealousy? "You've always been jealous of Jake, always comparing, always keeping score. We gave you everything, Sarah, everything, and you gave me expectations," I said, and my voice was steadier than I expected. "You gave me responsibilities. You gave me the knowledge that no matter how hard I worked, it would never be enough, because I wasn't Jake. That's not fair. You gave him a car, Dad, a brand new car, on the same day you told me to start paying rent. Don't you see how that looks? Don't you see what that says about how you value us?" He was silent for a moment, jaw working like he was chewing on something bitter. "Jake needed encouragement," he finally said. "He's struggled more than you. I've struggled too. The words exploded out of me. You just didn't notice because I didn't make a scene about it. I got good grades because I stayed up until 2 in the morning studying while Jake played video games. I got a scholarship because I worked 3 jobs to pad my resume while Jake hung out with his friends. I managed your entire household for 2 years because no one else was going to do it. And what did I get? Olive Garden and a demand for rent. My father's face was red now. You're being dramatic. Everything isn't about you. You're right. In this family, nothing is about me. That's the whole problem. We stared at each other across Megan's living room, 2 people who shared blood but suddenly felt like strangers. This is ridiculous, my father said. You're throwing away your family over some perceived slight. It's not perceived, Dad. It's documented. I could give you a list of every single thing I did for that house, every bill I paid, every appointment I scheduled, every hour I spent making your life easier. You wouldn't even recognize half of it because you never noticed I was doing it. Then why didn't you say something? If you were so unhappy, why didn't you speak up? Because every time I tried to speak up, I got told I was being dramatic or jealous or ungrateful because you trained me to be quiet and helpful and invisible, and now you're angry that I finally decided to be visible on my own terms. I was shaking, actually shaking, my whole body vibrating from years of suppressed anger. My father looked at me for a long moment, and then he said something that broke the last fragile thread connecting us. You know what? Fine. You want to feel sorry for yourself? Go ahead. But Jake is my son. He needed more from us. He was worth the investment because he had more potential to waste. You were always going to be fine, Sarah. You didn't need us the way he did. That's not favoritism. That's reality. The words landed like a physical blow. He was worth it. You didn't need us. I stood there stunned as my father stared at me with the expression of someone who genuinely believed he was being reasonable. And in that moment, I understood something with perfect clarity. I was never going to win this argument. There was nothing I could say, no evidence I could present, no amount of logic that would make him see what he'd done. Because in his mind, he hadn't done anything wrong. In his mind, loving his children unequally was just practical parenting. I took a breath, then another. Dad, I said quietly, I'm not leaving because of the rent. I'm leaving because of what you just said, because you actually believe it. You believe I didn't need you, so I didn't deserve you. And you're right, I don't need you, not anymore, but you're going to need me. You just don't know it yet. His expression flickered. Uncertainty, maybe, or just confusion. What's that supposed to mean? It means you should probably head home. I think the dishwasher is broken. I walked past him and opened the front door. He stood there for another moment, looking like he wanted to say something else, another accusation, another justification, but nothing came. He walked out without another word. I closed the door behind him, turned around, and slid down to the floor, my back against the wood. Megan appeared from the kitchen. She didn't say anything. She just sat down next to me and put her arm around my shoulders. We stayed like that for a long time. The conversation with my father replayed in my head for days afterward, not because I regretted anything I'd said, I didn't, but because I was still processing the revelation. He was worth it. You didn't need us. For 23 years, I had believed that my parents loved me and my brother equally, but just showed it differently, that the disparity in treatment was about personality or circumstances or bad timing. Now I knew the truth. They had made a choice, a conscious, deliberate choice about which child was worth more investment, more love, more sacrifice, and I had been sorted into the less worth it category before I'd had a chance to prove myself. The realization should have destroyed me, and for a while it almost did. I spent a lot of nights on Megan's couch, crying silently so I wouldn't wake her, mourning the family I thought I had. But somewhere in the grief, something else started to grow. Clarity. I couldn't change my parents. I couldn't make them see me differently, value me more, regret their choices. That ship had sailed, probably years ago, and I'd been the only one who didn't know it. But I could change everything else. I could build a life where my worth wasn't determined by how useful I was to people who didn't appreciate me. I could surround myself with people who saw me clearly, who valued my presence and not just my productivity. I could become the person I'd always been too afraid to be, someone who put herself first. I found my own apartment a month later, a small one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood with a window that got good morning light and a landlord who actually responded to maintenance requests. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Moving in felt like a baptism. Every box I unpacked was a declaration of independence. Every piece of furniture I assembled, badly with many curse words, was proof that I could do this on my own. Megan helped me move. So did a few friends from work who I'd been too busy with family stuff to really get to know before. Turns out, when you're not spending all your energy managing other people's lives, you have a lot more time to build your own. I started setting boundaries at work, too. No more staying late just because someone else didn't finish their project. No more taking on extra tasks without recognition. When my manager tried to dump an unreasonable deadline on me, I pushed back. Calmly, professionally, but firmly. And the world didn't end. My manager was annoyed for about 5 minutes and then found someone else to push around. It was that easy. It had always been that easy. I just hadn't known I was allowed to do it. My family situation, meanwhile, was imploding. I got updates through Jake, who had started calling me regularly, not to beg me to come home, but to vent. He'd been thrust into the household manager role by default, and he was overwhelmed. The property tax payment was due last week, he told me during one call, and no one knew. There was a late fee. Mom freaked out. Did you figure out how to pay it? I guess. I didn't know you did stuff like that. I thought it just happened automatically. Things don't happen automatically, Jake. Someone has to make them happen. Silence. Then, yeah, I'm starting to get that. My mom had reached out too, through a carefully worded text message that managed to be apologetic and guilt-trippy at the same time. Sarah, I don't understand why you left, but I'm sorry if something we did hurt you. Please come home so we can talk. We miss you. I miss you. I stared at that message for a long time. The old me would have caved, would have called her immediately, apologized for causing trouble, tried to smooth things over. The new me typed back, I'm not ready to talk yet. I need time. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Then I muted the conversation. 3 months after I left, my dad made one more attempt at contact. This time, it wasn't a confrontation. It was a voicemail, left late at night, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. Sarah, it's Dad. I've been thinking about what you said, about the car and the rent, and I don't know. Your mother is barely speaking to me. Jake is struggling. Everything is... I don't know how things got this bad. A pause. I could hear him breathing. I'm not good at this, apologizing, admitting I might have... Look, you were always so capable, so strong. I didn't think you needed the same things Jake did. I thought that was fair. Different treatment for different needs. Another pause. But I hear you about being worth it. That wasn't... I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I just meant... He trailed off. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. I miss you. We all do. When you're ready, I'd like to talk. Really talk, not argue. I'll listen this time. I promise. The voicemail ended. I sat with my phone in my hands, tears streaming down my face, feeling a complicated mixture of grief and hope and anger. He hadn't apologized, not really. He'd explained, justified, rationalized. Different treatment for different needs was just a fancier way of saying what he'd already admitted. Jake was worth more investment. But there was something in his voice I'd never heard before. Uncertainty, maybe even regret. It wasn't enough, not yet, maybe not ever. But for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future where we might find our way back to each other, not as the family we'd been, but something new, something healthier. I didn't call him back, not that night, but I saved the voicemail, just in case. 6 months after the night I left my parents' house with a duffel bag and a racing heart, I barely recognized my own life. I had my own apartment, small but clean, decorated exactly the way I wanted, with plants on the windowsill that I kept alive all by myself. I had a routine that was mine, a social life that was mine, a sense of self that didn't depend on being useful to people who took me for granted. Work had improved too. With my energy no longer being drained by family chaos, I had bandwidth to actually focus on my career. I'd impressed my manager with a project proposal, gotten a small promotion, and started building a reputation as someone who could be trusted with important work, but who also knew how to say no when the ask was unreasonable. I was happy, actually happy. Not the performative contentment I'd faked for years, but real, bone-deep satisfaction with the life I was building. But the family situation? That was still complicated. Jake and I had developed something like a real relationship. He called me every couple of weeks, and our conversations had evolved from crisis management to actual sibling bonding. He'd started to take responsibility for things around the house, though he still complained about it constantly. I had no idea how much there was to do, he told me during one call. Like, the house is a machine. It needs constant maintenance. How did you do all this and also have a job? I didn't sleep much, I said dryly. Jesus, Sarah, I'm sorry. I really am. And the weird thing was, I believed him. Jake wasn't a bad person. He'd just never been asked to be a good one. He'd been coddled and excused and handed everything. And now that he was actually facing adult responsibilities, he was rising to meet them. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. I was proud of him in a weird way, and I told him so. Thanks, he said. That means a lot coming from you. You know you're basically my role model, right? You've always been the one I looked up to. I laughed. You had a funny way of showing it. Yeah, well, I was an idiot. I'm trying to be less of one. Progress, I thought. Small, imperfect, but real progress. My mom and I had reached a fragile detente. We texted occasionally, light things mostly. She'd send me pictures of the garden or updates about extended family. I'd respond briefly but kindly. We hadn't had a real conversation about what happened, and I wasn't sure we ever would. But she'd stopped pretending everything was fine. That was something. A few months after I'd left, she'd sent me a longer message. Sarah, I know I wasn't always fair. I didn't see it at the time, but looking back, I can see how we leaned on you too much and didn't appreciate what you gave. I'm sorry. I hope someday you can forgive me. It wasn't perfect. It didn't acknowledge the specific injustices, didn't name the favoritism, didn't take responsibility for her part in building a family where I was the servant and Jake was the prince, but it was more than my dad had given me, and it was a start. I thanked you for the message, I wrote back. I'm working on forgiveness. It's a process. She'd sent back a heart emoji. Baby steps. My dad was the hardest nut to crack. After that late-night voicemail, he'd gone quiet for a while. No more demands, no more accusations, no more showing up unannounced, but also no more attempts at genuine connection. Then, about 8 months after I'd left, he sent me an email. A real email, not a text, like he'd actually sat down and thought about what to write. Sarah, I've been thinking about our last conversation, the one at your friend's apartment. I've replayed it 100 times, and I keep getting stuck on the same thing. I told you Jake was worth it. I told you you didn't need us the same way he did. I've been trying to convince myself that I meant something different, that it came out wrong. But the truth is, I said exactly what I was thinking, and that's the problem. I spent so much time focused on helping Jake that I forgot you might need help too. I saw your strength as a reason to give you less instead of something to celebrate and nurture. I treated your capability like it meant you didn't matter as much. That was wrong. I was wrong. I don't expect you to forgive me. I know I'm probably too late, but I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what we did, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No pressure, no demands, just, I'm here. Dad. I read the email 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went for a long walk. Forgiveness is a weird thing. People talk about it like it's a switch you flip. One moment you're angry, the next you're not. But in my experience, it's more like a tide. It comes and goes. Some days you feel like you've made peace with everything, and other days the old wounds ache like they're fresh. My dad's email didn't fix anything. It didn't erase the years of invisible labor. The graduation party, the $900, the moment he'd looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't worth it. But it cracked something open, a possibility, a door I could choose to walk through if I ever felt ready. For now, I wasn't ready, but I was no longer sure I never would be. 1 year after I left, I went back for Thanksgiving. Not to the house, that felt like too much, too soon. But my mom had suggested meeting at a restaurant, neutral territory, and I'd agreed. She, my dad, and Jake would be there. It would be the first time I'd seen all of them together since that graduation party. I spent the entire morning before the dinner in a low-grade panic. What if it went badly? What if my dad said something awful? What if I fell back into old patterns, saying yes to everything, being the invisible helper, sacrificing my own needs for the comfort of people who'd spent years taking me for granted? Megan talked me down via text. You're not the same person you were a year ago. You've built a whole new life. You have boundaries now. They can't take that from you unless you let them. She was right. I knew she was right. But I was still scared. The restaurant was a nice steakhouse on the edge of town, my mom's choice, probably a peace offering. I arrived 5 minutes late on purpose, not wanting to sit there alone waiting for them. When I walked in, I saw them at a corner table. My mom looked nervous. My dad looked older. Jake looked good, healthier than I remembered, more confident. I walked over, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then Jake stood up and hugged me. "Hey sis, it's really good to see you." I hugged him back, surprised by the tears pricking at my eyes. "You too." My mom hugged me next, whispering, "Thank you for coming," in my ear. And then it was just me and my dad, standing across from each other with a year of silence between us. He didn't try to hug me. I think he knew he hadn't earned that yet. "Sarah," he said, "I'm glad you're here." "Thanks for inviting me," I said carefully. We sat down, we ordered food, we made small talk about work and the weather and the new restaurant that had opened downtown. And then, somewhere between the appetizers and the main course, my dad cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he said, "if that's okay." Everyone went quiet. "Sarah, I spent a lot of time this year thinking about the things you said, about being invisible, about not being valued, about what I said to you that day at your friend's apartment." He paused, looking down at his hands. "I was raised to believe that strength didn't need support, that capable people could handle anything on their own, and I passed that on to you. I saw your strength, and I thought it meant I could lean on you without giving anything back." His voice broke slightly. "I was wrong. You deserved better. You deserved a father who celebrated you, not one who exploited you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry it took losing you to see that." I sat very still, my heart hammering. This wasn't like the email. This was real, in person, witnessed by my mother and brother. This was him standing in front of the family and admitting what he'd done. It didn't fix everything. Nothing could fix everything. The years of imbalance, the graduation party, the moment he'd called Jake worth it, those scars would always be there. But this was a start, a real start. "Thank you," I said, and my voice was steadier than I expected. "That means a lot." My dad nodded, blinking rapidly. I know I have a long way to go. I know one apology doesn't make up for years of, but I want to try, if you'll let me. I want to try to be the father you deserved." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw him not as the untouchable authority figure of my childhood, but as a flawed human being who had made terrible mistakes and was finally, belatedly, trying to atone for them. "We can try," I said, "but on my terms, not yours." He nodded again. "Whatever you need." We finished dinner. It wasn't comfortable, exactly. There was too much history for that. But it wasn't hostile either. My mom told stories about her book club. Jake talked about his new job. My dad asked questions about my apartment and actually listened to the answers. It felt like the first Thanksgiving I'd ever had with my actual family, instead of the performance of one. Today, almost 2 years after I left that house, here's where things stand. My dad and I are still rebuilding. We see each other once a month or so, sometimes dinner, sometimes just coffee. The conversations are still cautious, but they're getting easier. He's not perfect. He still makes comments sometimes that echo the old favoritism, but he catches himself now, apologizes, tries again. My mom and I are closer than we've ever been. Turns out, when I stopped performing and started being real, she met me there. We've had long conversations about her own experiences growing up, the pressure she felt to keep the peace, the ways she enabled my dad without realizing it. She's working on it. We both are. Jake is actually thriving. He moved out of our parents' house last year, got his own place, and is doing surprisingly well at adulting. He still calls me for advice sometimes, but now it feels like a sibling thing rather than a dependency. He's grown up a lot. I'm proud of him. And me? I'm good, really good. I have my own apartment, my own career, my own friends, my own boundaries. I no longer measure my worth by how useful I am to others. I no longer stay quiet when something isn't fair. I no longer accept treatment that tells me I'm less worth it than anyone else. The night I left my parents' house, I thought I was just escaping an impossible situation. What I didn't realize was that I was also escaping a version of myself, the Sarah who had been trained to be invisible, to sacrifice without complaint, to earn love through labor instead of receiving it as a gift. That Sarah is gone, and honestly, I don't miss her. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, if you're the responsible one in a family that takes advantage of that, the person who does everything and gets nothing, the one who keeps waiting for someone to notice how hard you're working, I want you to know something. Walking away isn't selfish. It isn't ungrateful. It isn't cruel. Sometimes walking away is the only way to survive. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You don't have to earn love by being useful, and you sure as hell don't have to accept a reality where your value is measured against someone else and found wanting. You are worth it, even if no one ever told you, even if the people who should have told you every single day instead told you the opposite. You are worth it. And sometimes the only way to prove that to the world and to yourself is to stop waiting for permission and start building the life you deserve.
My parents tried to make me pay rent while my brother got a brand new car. They told me I wasn't worth the same investment. They had no idea that I was about to become the best investment I'd ever make, in myself. So what do you think? Was I too harsh, or did they get exactly what they earned? Drop your verdict in the comments. I read every single one. And if you've ever been the invisible one in your family, the one who did everything and got nothing in return, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, there are a lot more stories like this one. Stories about people who finally stopped being doormats and started being the main character in their own lives. Until next time, remember your worth, and don't let anyone convince you that you're not worth it, because you are.